I hope you're ready to dwell into the dungeons, because the Proving Grounds is open, along with the Apocalypse in Meet Your Maker. Meet Your Maker is basically a loop of two types of gameplay. Building dungeon raids for people to go in and die and capture DNA samples, and you going into other people's dungeon raids and stealing DNA samples. The story's pretty simple. The world is an apocalypse, and you were created to go and get DNA so you can make this mutated thing save humanity one day, potentially. You and an army of clone monsters basically serve a ship to go and get this DNA shit, and you'll set up raids to lure others into death traps. While the building side of this game isn't necessary to play, it does reward you additional rewards as people die in your raids, so you're kind of encouraged to do both. Now, this game is in its later portion of its life. It's not getting new content or anything. It's an online-only game, so once they shut the servers down, this game will be a dead game, sadly. Now, it's still up and running, and as far as I know, there's no word of it going down anytime soon, but it does have a small player base. Now, this game can be played in co-op, but not in a cross-play way. While the game is on PS4, PS5, and PC, all the content is cross-play, but the co-op mode is not. You have to either be on both on PlayStation or both on PC, which is a bit of a shame, but at least it's there. Now, I haven't gotten to try co-op mode, because for one thing, co-op mode has to be done with a friend. There's no, like, queuing system. I'm looking for a co-op partner or anything. So that aspect of it is you'll have to find someone randomly on the internet or get a friend to purchase it on the platform that you're playing on if you want to play that. But in a solo mode, you'll have to deal with using your suit, weapons, accessories, or essentially your like grenades and stuff, and then you'll also have enhancements that you can modify your gameplay temporarily on a specific raid. Like, say, like you're facing like a really hard dungeon, you want an extra jump or resist acid longer or that, because you're running into that problem in a dungeon. You can add an enhancement if you've found any. And it's best to save those for such instances of when you're having trouble in a really hard dungeon. There's a lot of them that affect different things, and you'll collect them as you go through the game. Now, when it comes as a raider side of things, you have challenges, you'll have a normal, difficult, and brutal pathways that you can select, and they'll bring up a map that have raids and random rewards between certain raids. So you just raid, might get a reward, do another raid and that, and once you complete the whole map, it'll give you some points towards a unlockable, and you'll get a new map to go on that difficulty. Now, raids have a few ups and downs. While I've certainly seen some very fun and interesting dungeons, both challenging or creatively, there are some problematic ones. One in your benefit, one not so much in your benefit. These two types are what are called kill boxes and EXP maps. Kill boxes are essentially not usually fun. They are usually just a fucking, like, a condoned room that's meant to be so fucking insanely filled with pure death that's, like, insane to get the fuck out. These are extremely heavy-ass, like, monstrosities. And they apparently, at one point in time in the life of this game, were a big problem. And they did a lot of updates to negate these problems. So, apparently these were worse at one point. But they still technically exist. EXP maps were also apparently a problem, where people found you could design essentially methods to farm EXP and shit. These got nerfed to where there were caps and such, and while these maps still exist, and I can tell you, when I go through one and that, I usually can get like about 2 levels usually out of a decent designed one. And they offer you benefit, to be fair. Leveling up gives you additional resources to unlock shit, and since unlocking shit is a fucking hell of a grind, I definitely recommend taking advantage of them. But if you don't want to, I mean, I can understand that too, because obviously they're not the point of the game, and the game wasn't designed to make maps like that. But honestly, if you want a lot of the gear unlocked, I would take advantage of it personally, because it's a slow grind to unlock shit. You basically have 3 types of currency. The red, blue, and yellow. Red currency is used to unlock a lot of things, like new suits, new equipment, and new traps and minions to use in dungeons that you create. The blue is usually additional currency that's usually used to also unlock additional things on a lot of those upgrades and such. The yellow currency has to do with making your raids, plots, prestiging a dungeon. Now, there is a decent variety of weapons and things, but I barely have any unlocked, because, like, getting new suits and equipment and getting minions and traps for your own raids, like, they all cost the red currency, and the red currency is not easy to grind. You would have to play for hours and hours and hours to get a whole bunch of it in a day. So it's not easy to get a lot of it. Now, I had fun with both modes. Like, I've made a few dungeons, and I've waited a lot of dungeons. And the fun aspect with the dungeon making is you actually can watch the people who do the raids. There's a computer you can access and literally watch from beginning to end how they go through your raid. And you can use that to improve the dungeon, counter ways that they like, oh look, they found a loophole through my design. I can adjust that and make that not happen. Or be like, hey, you know, there's a common spot they keep retreating. Maybe I should like put a range trap there so when they jump over they get killed there or that, and less of them escape. Because you basically get rewarded additional resources for every raider who dies on your dungeon. So you're encouraged to ensure their deaths. But I do think it's rewarding to make a fun and interesting dungeon too, not to just essentially make it as death-ridden as humanly possible. But of course, it's up to your options on how you want to do that. You're free to make your dungeon essentially how you want. There's only 2 requirements when you're making a dungeon. It has to meet a certain defensive threshold, which, as far as I understand, is dependent on the amount of trap guards that are near the DNA container that you're going for in the raid. Something about the distance and how many they all meet that criteria. The other criteria is there's always a bot that goes from the beginning to where the DNA capsule is. And it will go back and forth. And it's used to help you figure out where it is if you follow it. But it can get killed by you and other enemies. So if you're being reliant on it, you want to be careful to not let it die. But when you're making a dungeon, it has to be able to get from point A to point B. If it can't, then you can't okay the dungeon for publish. If you meet those 2 criteria, otherwise you are free to do what you want. And unlike something like Mario Maker, you don't have to actually be able to beat the map personally, which has its ups and downs. The ups are, well, it allows you to make harder levels that you probably wouldn't normally be able to beat yourself. I can tell you, I couldn't make a really hard Mario Maker level and then beat it myself. But the negative is, this also makes it, well, making, well, Death Cubed hellscapes really easy, because you don't have to pass it. And it leads to death box traps. And I can tell you, I've done a few of those, and they're not fun. It's not fun when it's deliberately being as sanely insane to ensure you fucking die, and maybe even fucking rage quit. They're not fun. They're very rarely fun. They're pretty annoying. I definitely appreciate dungeons with spread out traps and guards and more interesting design versus here's a box and every fucking wall is death. Now, as I said, this game's in its later life. It's not being supported with new content. It's just basically in playable state with unlockables and the seasons and stuff all repeating in that. So there's nothing additional getting put on here, but it still has a player base. There's still playing people's dungeons I'm able to access each day in that. And oddly enough, this game seems to have a bigger player base on PlayStation than PC. Because when you go to the We Play screen, you can see what the player played on, whether it's PlayStation or PC. And I can tell you, I do see PC players, but they are heavily outnumbered by PlayStation. So oddly enough, this game is being carried away much more by the console side of things, oddly enough. It's usually the other way around in games that are growing smaller. Now, while I did have fun with this game, it has a lot of pitfalls. Personally, getting new tools, like I said, is a real fucking grind. I mean, I barely have any weapons and one suit unlocked. And I've already played a decent chunk. Like, I'm level, 34 in the game. So, I've played a decent chunk of the game. And it's really fucking long road to unlock shit and upgrade stuff. It's a grind like fuck. And it's pretty annoying, especially with, all the booster perks that the different shops have. So there's a person for traps, a person for weapons and stuff, and they all have booster perks that are temporary effects on the gameplay, which with a small player base aren't a very big thing. You probably only want to use them during the weekend. Well, most people are going to be off and probably do a few matches of this during the weekend. That's probably the best time to do that kind of stuff. Dungeons also have a timer and a set limit of waiters. Essentially, basically, the more people who die and wage quit on your map, the longer your map's going to stay up. The more people who run away with the DNA stuff, the quicker they're going to eat up the resources of your map and get to be deactive. Now, when your map deactivates, your dungeon deactivates, you can prestige it and reactivate it. So every time it deactivates, it being either because of waiters or the time limit of how long its maximum time can be up, which is 18-ish hours or that. It creates a kind of an annoying problem. On one hand, I get the idea that the creators want you to make new dungeons and stuff. And, I get that. You want to make new dungeons. You don't want people to just make, 2 dungeons and then just leave that up forever and ever until the game's dead. I get that. But there is a certain amount of annoyance in it as well. Because how long the dungeons last. Like I said, I think the highest time I've seen a dungeon be able to last, 18 hours. They don't even last a day. They don't even last one whole day. It's very annoying. I think it would have been way better to make it, at least a half week, if not a week. It feels like such a short amount of time. And then you have to prestige it again with a certain amount of the yellow currency, which goes up each time you prestige it. Once it gets to prestige 10... and it deactivates, it no longer can be prestiged and reactivated. And it can be left on social media mode. Now, social media mode is basically... you can only get EXP in the social maps. You can't get any of the resource stuff that you would normally get from killing traps and things on a normal map in the normal way you would do raids. So you can still make use of certain maps in the social, but you just only get EXP, not the full benefits. But it leaves it where the dungeon gets to stay active, and you're allowed to have a lot of dungeons stay in your builder tab of your menu, so you can leave a lot of your raids active in social once they get all the way to prestige 10 if you if you feel like you really liked it and you feel proud of it and you don't want it to go away forever, but nobody can ever see it again in the normal, dangerous or brutal pathways. So if you want that same thing to appear again, you just have to completely rebuild it again. And since you don't get to choose where to put the DNA thing too, that means you need to get the same plot of land to get that option or make modifications based off where the tube is on the map. And this creates an annoying system of whether you're going to get on to re-prestige and activate these dungeons so people can hopefully die on them and get you additional resources, or eventually get tired of doing it. Because that's kind of where I am. I've made about 12, 13 these dungeons at this point, and yeah, it's just, it kind of gets annoying just making a new one only for it to eventually squander out into nothing, and you can't get anything more out of it. That I feel like maybe like once it gets to Prestige 10, it would have been nice to just have like a really expensive option to re-prestige as just 10 again and have it available again or something. That way you can still activate it, but it's just very costly. Like, I think that would have been a nice option instead of just completely wiping it out. Like, it's very annoying. I feel like the most minimum thing that would have made me happy is if they just lasted longer, honestly, though. Just not lasting even a whole day just feels so little, especially with the small player base. Again, it feels like it definitely needs more time. Maybe in its heyday, where it probably had a lot more people, probably was a lot more better, I imagine. But yeah, it could use that adjustment right now, to be honest. But it is what it is. I had fun with the game. It's still playable. You can still play in co-op. You can build. You can wade. You can do both. You can just do one if you want. I mean, technically, you could just focus on building too, but it would take even longer to make any fucking progression. But you could technically. It just would take way more time. But you can get all the resources via letting people die in your raids and collect shit from the dead corpses and that. So what would I recommend Meet Your Maker? Like I said, it's an online only game, so you're essentially buying a game that will likely one day die. When? Who knows? Like I said, at this point in time, there's no word of it dying anytime soon or being shut down or anything, so it's hard to really know if it will eventually get shut off or just left alone for years and years. Personally, for what I played, on a cheap one, I could understand paying like $20, $15 for this game, especially if you got a friend to play it with. Co-op mode is pretty fun from what I've seen, and apparently very advantageable too, because you apparently get infinite revives as long as your partner gets to you and revives you. You can just have infinite revives that way, which is a interesting advantage for co-op too, which would make going through way harder dungeons way better. But yeah, I'd say $15, $20 is a decent price for this game, which is basically what the digital price goes for on this game. Now, I usually get physical versions, and this does have a physical version both on PS4 and PS5 that was multi-language in Japanese market. So that means you would have to import it if you want a physical version. The physical version is brand new, $35 from PlayAsia for PS5, and $33 for PS4. So, yeah, you're going to pay a little bit more if you want a brand new copy. And it's not too much better on eBay. You can get a few copies just a little bit lower, but yeah, you're gonna definitely pay over $20 at least on the internet. Maybe if you live in Japan, maybe you can find a cheaper copy locally there. Because I can tell you, I've had a lot of good deals when I went to Japan. Like, whew, yeah. I tell you, when I go to Japan next time, I'm definitely going to have a list of things I want to look for. Ask the clerks for help with and that. Overall, I like the game. I definitely would recommend it more, probably for co-op if you can get a partner for it. But I had fun with it as a solo person. I got it on a sale from PlayAsia when it was like $31, so it wasn't that much cheaper. And I got it last year, actually, so it's been a while since I had it. I enjoyed it, but yeah, it's up to you whether you feel like it's worth it or not. This is a bit of a subjective game. It has a lot of repetitive grind in it, but I definitely think I got my fun out of it overall. And technically, it's a game you could get to platinum if you're willing to go through the grind. Honestly, though, I'd probably not, but I might get it. I kind of do a dungeon or two here and there each day, so I get it little by little, but I think overall I'm mostly done with this title. Overall, it's an okay game. I can recommend it, but just keep in mind, it's an online only game, and if you're watching this, you probably want to double check to make sure it's still online, because, I mean, you don't want to buy a disc and have it be dead white. But those are my thoughts overall. If you have any questions, feel free to leave a comment down below, and, yeah, there's not really anything more to the story. It doesn't have an ending or anything, so nothing to really add for a spoiler section, so toodaloos into the waves down below. Don't forget to leave a like or a dislike based on whether you liked it or not, or learned anything.